Hi, I'm Daniel James. Welcome to Livewire. Well, this week's special guest, I was going to call her the Queen of Raves, but actually, I think she's a bit naughtier than that. She's the Queen of a few illegal raves too. Let's find out more. Welcome, the fabulous Rozalla.
Hello, Daniel. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Well, you have a history. I think you've been a bit of a naughty girl in your time, with a few illegal raves.
Oh, I've always been good, Daniel.
Well, look, it's lovely to have you, and I've got some loads of questions to ask you because let's start at the beginning, shall we? Let's go way back to your childhood, when you were born in Zambia. When did you
Yeah.
get the first feeling that you enjoyed singing?
All my life, I knew I wanted to be a singer from when I was a child. And my aunt, Kuni, sadly, she's not with us anymore, was a singer. And I think, she got married, she had children, so she didn't really realize her dream. And then she saw me and she lived it through me. She's like telling all the family, she can sing, she can sing. So when I was under 10, I did a children's television program in Zambia, Lusaka. I sang. So that was my first introduction into television, into the cameras, into what it could be like.
Can you remember what you sung for that talent competition?
Oh goodness, I can't remember. I used to sing a lot of in Zambia and Zimbabwe where I grew up. The airways play a lot of Western style music, so I was very much influenced by that. I remember growing up and loving Diana Ross, Aretha Franklin, Barbara Streisand, and there was an amazing African artist called Leta Mbulu and Dorothy Masuku. And they were just and Leta Mbulu, it was just incredible.
It
Incredible.
sounds like you were very driven, even as a very young child.
I think so. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. Whenever my family would have, barbecues, they'd get me out to sing. Listen to Rozalla singing. She can sing, and I would sing.
Nothing like a bit of family encouragement, is there? It's great.
Family encouragement, absolutely, absolutely. And I just knew this is what I wanted to do.
And your
For
dad had a
my
friend
life.
who is it right that your dad had a friend who was a band leader and he was working at a hotel?
Yes, yes. My dad knew a friend, and I remember at this time I was about 13 or 14, and it was the Hotel Intercontinental in Lusaka, and he's like, get her over, and she can sing every night for 2 weeks. And I learned songs with the band, but they didn't advertise me because I was underage. So again,
Oh,
that was my
see,
first.
I was right. You are a little naughty rule breaker. You started young, breaking those
I
rules.
did, I did, and each time I did things like that, it just got deeper into my system that this is really what I wanted to do and
You
earn
know
a
that
living from it.
that first night. Well, I presume it was in the evening that you walked on stage with the band behind you. Now you'd obviously sung in your mum's living room in the barbecues for your auntie. What was that feeling like that first night, your first gig with a big band behind you?
It was incredible because here I was, a child, really singing to adults, who were having their wine, their whiskey, their dinner. It was a very sort of cultured evening, so to speak, all the women in their gowns, the men in their black tie. And this is what I was introduced to. But in the back of my mind, I thought, they've obviously booked me here and dad's bringing me here every night. So they believe in me. So I had that seed and I thought, they believe in me, do this. And it's a great opportunity. And my dad was my number one fan.
Well, everyone needs their, one of the parents just over their shoulder for security. It must have been lovely, that first bit of applause. You must have grown about 3 inches taller.
Oh, it was incredible. It just planted the seed more and more. And I just was so determined to make it
So
in
to
this.
further your ambitions, is it right your parents then moved to Zimbabwe when you were about 13?
Yes, my parents moved to Zimbabwe. I would have been about 14, 15 by that time. And so the way I look at it, Daniel, I spent my formative years in Zimbabwe, before I came to the UK. And what happened in Zimbabwe was my aunt Kuni, who could have been the singer, but became, a mother, wife, knew of a very good friend who was sort of putting together a band. And she's like, Rozalla can sing. Why don't you get her? So he called me up and he's like, look, I'm starting this band and I was the lead singer. We had the bass player, guitarist, and backing singers and drummer. And we called the band Grab, which was the beginnings of the first letters of our names. It was Gabby, Rozalla, Andy, and Boyke. And we went around the whole of Zimbabwe playing, the music that was being played on the radio. And I just loved it. I just loved it.
And were you thinking about recording at that point? Were you thinking, I want to make records?
Well, what actually happened was, because we were doing other people's songs and singing other people's songs, and it was going down the storm, I just thought to myself, there's only so long I can do this for. I want to release my own material under my own name, and I'm one of those people, when I look back now, life is sort of like when you put something out there, life or the universe helps conspire to get you there or near of, and I didn't know it then, but when I look back now and I think, I look at the pattern of what I've dreamt of becoming and doing in my life, most of it has worked out, thank you, God. And lo and behold, whilst I was performing with Grab, there was a talent contest going in Zimbabwe, and I joined it. And I won all the 3 hits of this talent contest, and the prize was a recording contract.
That's incredible. What a great, some people win a holiday or a car. You got just what was perfect for you.
Yeah, incredible. It's like, the universe was looking and going, this is what she wants. And each time I just think, oh, this is what I'd love. This is what I'd like to do. And
it's almost I don't know. There was a little stairway, and you were each step was nearer your goal. Do you believe in manifesting?
100%. Daniel, at the time, I didn't know what it was. I just have been one of those people till today is, it's a case of you reap what you sow. You give out what you hope to get back. And it doesn't always work that way, but, the universe and life conspires to help one get there in a good, positive way when you believe it and when you put good out.
So when you won the talent competition, yet another thrill, what was the next move with that?
So I'd recorded music and became this starlet in Zimbabwe. And, there was this one DJ friend of mine that became a big fan, excuse me. And I said, his name was John Matindi, and they were playing all my songs on the biggest radio station in Zimbabwe the station was called Radio 3. And I said, John, I think I've gotten to as far as I can in Zimbabwe. I need to become an international star or an international artist, because there's only so far I can go. And then again, one of those things, you reap what you sow. They happened to be one of John's friends who was on holiday in Zimbabwe, and he saw my...
Was this Chris Sargent?
Yeah, this was Chris Sargent, and he was on holiday.
Producer, wasn't he?
Yeah, and John introduced us, and Chris said, look, I've got a studio in Wolverhampton. We believe in you. And Grammar Records, who I was signed to, also believed in me. And they bought me my first 2 or 3 air tickets to come to the UK to record in Chris Sargent's studio in Wolverhampton. And all these recordings, this was late 1988, all the recordings that we did in Wolverhampton the album was called Spirit of Africa. It was only released in Zimbabwe and South Africa. And those songs we were sending round to record labels trying to get a record deal.
So tell me, you arrived in London. You'd not been to England before. You'd not been to the UK before. So what was it like? I'm dying to know what time of year it was when they opened the plane doors, because you're coming from Zimbabwe to England. Was it raining? Was it windy? Was it snowing? What was happening? And did you shiver?
Daniel, all I know is John Matindi picked me up from the airport with the biggest, heaviest coat, and it was freezing. It was freezing cold. So it was a bit of a shock, because Zimbabwe and Zambia are very hot climates. And so that took some getting used to for some time for me.
So did you fly into London to Heathrow?
I believe it was, London Heathrow.
So he must have picked you up in the car and then driven you to, of all places, the biggest glamorous place in the Midlands, Wolverhampton. There's another culture shock for you.
But I know, when you're hungry for something, everywhere is beautiful. You make things work for you. When you look at things in a different way that's positive in your mind, you make it work for you. You try your best. It doesn't always work out, but I was just so excited to be in the UK. I just thought this is a dream come true. Whatever happens, I've touched down onto UK soil.
Well, you were moving on to your next phase, your next step. And,
Yeah.
you know, arriving in Wolverhampton, you know, sausage and chips on a Friday night.
Which I loved, by the way, which I absolutely loved.
You see, you can take the girl out of Wolverhampton, but not the Wolverhampton out of the girl.
Exactly. It's still in me. It's still in me.
So you were recording with Chris, and then your demos were sent out to record companies. You were looking for a deal, which is what we do. We look for record deals as artists. And they landed on the desk of Nigel Swanston and Tim Cox, who were known as the Band of Gypsies.
That's right.
That was their production name. So they obviously liked what they heard. So what happened next?
Well, they called myself and Chris and said, we love Rozalla's voice. And I got to meeting with Tim and Nigel. And they said, you know, Rozalla, what style of music do you want to do? I said, look, I want to do dance music that's uplifting and that has positive lyrics. And we came up with Everybody's Free to Feel Good. And if you listen to the whole Everybody's Free to Feel Good album, all the tracks have got positively charged lyrics.
It's like a thread. It's like a thread going through, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted. That's what the guys helped me deliver. And, you know, the way I look at it, you know, God sent me two angels in Tim and Nigel.
That must have been amazing. And were they based in London? Did you have to come to London for that?
Yes. That's when I started first traveling to the UK. And we recorded at Denmark Road, I think. Denmark Street.
Denmark Street. It used to be called Tin Pan Alley. Because
oh, really?
Generations ago, that's where all the musicians were in the music, the publishings and
that's
the studios. Right. So you couldn't have been in a better place. What was the first track you recorded? Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember. I think it was Born to Love You.
And it's the young. How does it go?
I was born to love you, baby. In fact, I've got the sleeve here. Excuse me.
No, that's okay. There you go. That just tilt it down a little bit, tilt it forward. That's it. Just a little bit of glare on there. Well, there you go. Don't you look young and cool on there?
Young and cool. And I remember that was the first single release from the Everybody's Free album.
That must have felt great. I bet you were phoning home to your mum and dad. Guess what?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, Daniel. You know, my hair, they did my hair in this bouffant hairstyle, which at the time I did not like, but I couldn't have cared less. I had my first UK single, Born to Love You. Didn't become a hit, but it became an underground club hit for my underground fans. And I remember...
Did you go back into the studio then and record more stuff after that?
Yes. Then we carried on recording the rest of the album for Everybody's Free to Feel Good. And, you know, decided to call the album.
Did you start gigging by then?
Yes, I was going around to promote the songs. You know, I was doing clubs and starting at like 2 in the afternoon at the teenage clubs till the next morning at 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd do anywhere between 6 to 7 club dates in a night, you know, trying to promote these tracks. And
you were building up a fan base.
Yeah, not getting paid anything, just which I didn't mind because I knew I was, you know, the apprentice at the time, trying to hopefully make this work. And it was just incredible.
So how did the single, the particular track Everybody's Free, come about? Because it's very anthemic, it's got a message.
Yes.
Sometimes songs come about by accident. You hear a phrase or some strange way. How did Everybody's Free come about?
We first released, I believe it was Faith in the Power of Love, and that went top 75. It didn't even go anywhere near the top 40. And then I remember feeling so disappointed because I thought it's a great track, you know, but the thing is, Daniel, when you record a song in the studio, you know it's a great song, but once it's out there, it's beyond your control. Absolutely. And so we released Are You Ready to Fly? And then I did Top of the Pops. And then that sort of started garnering, you know, a strength. And then we released Everybody's Free, and that's history. That's just, the rest is history.
The thing is, the early 90s, my group Yell, we were 1990, early 1990 and a little bit onwards. And we were very, you know, pop and upbeat, dancey pop. And then the rave culture crept in, and the kind of pop took a bit of a side edge. And of course, you know, you could be really called, as I said earlier in the introduction, the queen of rave music, the queen of illegal raves as well, because obviously Everybody's Free was kind of like a rave anthem, wasn't it?
It was.
You touched the audience just at the right time.
Yeah, and I believe Everybody's Free became the rave anthem, and at the time, because I used to hear that the majority of rave tracks that were released then were just one-liners, whereas Everybody's Free was a song. It was a constructed song with verses and lyrics to go with it, and a chorus. And so not only was it a rave track, it was a proper song.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a proper construction, as you say, verse, bridge, chorus, and, you know, middle eight and stuff, which is fabulous, because then, you know, you're in a club, you can hang on to the lyrics and you can sing along with the artist.
That's right.
Everybody's Free comes out. You've built up a bit of a fan base. I presume then they were driving you everywhere to just club gigs and raves. How did that feel?
Incredible, incredible. I'm sitting down thinking, I've made it. I came here to the UK, and my dream has come true. You know, I don't know what more I want, but to continue being a singer, to continue going into the studio and making new music, and going out and recording and singing for my fans.
You know, I mean, I've done it myself with my band Yell. You know, you like you say, you do the afternoon, you do the kids stuff, the school tours, and then in the night you do the bars and the clubs. And they're a kind of small audience. You went from playing the clubs and the bars to raves, which could be 10,000 people in a field. You know, that must have been a huge thrill for you, a big change.
It was incredible. And then, you know, the next thing is I was signed to Sony, and then Michael Jackson, the biggest star in my opinion at that time, was about to embark on his dangerous tour, sadly his last tour.
Just before you tell us about Michael Jackson, I can't wait to hear about the Dangerous Tour. Let's just take a little look at your big 90s anthem, or one of your big 90s anthem, Everybody's Free.
Everybody's free to feel good. Everybody's free to feel good. Everybody's
So that was the killer track. That's the one that everybody remembers, and it's still played now. I mean, you know, I remember getting into an elevator somewhere in the UK a couple of weeks ago, and the track came straight on. It, you know, it's everywhere. It must be
Yeah.
great that it's still out there for you.
Oh, I'm just overjoyed. I'm so full of gratitude. And again, everybody's free. I think the profile of that song has continued to be raised because, you know, you've got these young and upcoming artists doing it on competition shows like the X Factor. You know, Kylie Minogue covered it for her Christmas album a few years ago. We just agreed to the Cravendale farmers using Everybody's Free for the advert a few months ago.
Are they going to be milking cows? Everybody's
milking
free.
cows
Just
and
milk cows.
yeah, when that came forward and the publishers asked us, what do you think? I said to Tim and Nigel at the time weren't so keen about it. And I'm like, guys, it's fun. It's just fun. Nobody's in competition with the actual song and things like that. You know, people will go back and think, oh, let's listen to the original if they've never heard the original. You know, it creates things like that.
Brings the song to a whole new
Yeah,
audience, young kids
absolutely.
listening, and an older audience. It's going to cross the board. You know, I think
Absolutely.
you're totally right. Look, you're really positive about this. You know, so when Everybody's Free it got to number 6 in the UK charts originally, then it stormed the charts in Europe. So then you were going off to Europe to another new audience. That must have been an exciting time, hopping from country to country.
It was just wonderful. I think Germany, Holland, Spain, I mean, practically the whole of Europe, Portugal. I was traveling to these places and I was thinking, gosh, if I was working, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to all these places. But the record labels in those territories were paying for me to get there to promote the album and Everybody's Free. And thank goodness Everybody's Free, Faith in the Power of Love, and Are You Ready to Fly were up to date, my biggest hit singles.
And it's great. You could get on stage, perform the 3 tracks and really lift everyone's spirits. Was there any particular country that when you got there, you thought, wow, I like this country, or the audiences were different, or was it across the board, everybody's reaction the same?
Everybody's reaction was phenomenal. Honestly, you know, whether I go and perform in a minus town that's tiny and small to New York, massive stadium, the smiles on the people's faces is just so beautiful. And I just think all the time, you know, Daniel, what an opportunity for me to sing. And, you know, obviously I'm invited here because they want me to perform, they believe in me. And I just think for me, there's always a beauty in that.
Can I ask you, I mentioned earlier about going from singing in clubs, you know, late at night and stuff. What the big difference about going on to those stages? I remember Yell playing to an audience of like 30,000 in Barcelona. It takes a different kind of thing with your voice. And I just wanted to ask you how you coped vocally, going from those little intimate venues to then driving around. You know, you say you're away in Europe for 3 weeks. You know,
Yeah.
your sleep pattern changes, you're sleeping in different beds, and then you're jumping on stage and you're belting it out. And the thing about anthems is you can't stand there and think, everybody's free. You've got to run across the stage and you're shouting. How did that affect your voice, or was it fine?
It did affect my voice because, you know, you're traveling, the air conditioning in the aircraft or stuff like that. So I'd never had vocal training in my life. And I went for vocal training. Fortunately, Sony sent me for vocal training. And this teacher taught me how to use my voice, how to look after my voice. And I did all that. Till today, I do all that. But ultimately, what I've learned is, you know, when you're on tour, at the end of the day, your voice, it does take its toll. And the bottom line is, all you can do, no matter how much lemon and honey you take, or egg, I heard there's something about mashing an egg, or, you know, vocal warm-ups. When your voice has been affected, the bottom line is you have to rest. That's
when
it.
you're in the middle of a tour and you've got Portugal, Spain, Belgium, Holland, that must be so hard to do. Were there any times you're thinking, wow, I've got to run on that stage in a minute and hit that high note? Because you've set yourself a challenge with Everybody's Free with that note.
Oh God, absolutely, absolutely. And so with the high notes, she taught me how to attack them and how to hit them. And one of the things till today, Daniel, is warming up has just been such a savior you know, and when my voice isn't in good voice or whatever, I sort of, you know, tend to also, it's microphone technique, how you pull the microphone away, or you just hit that note in a different way. Like Everybody's Free, I recorded that over 30 years ago. I can't hit some of those notes that I did then. Now I'm, you know, 59-year-old woman. My voice has changed. I can hit notes with the different color of voice that I have now. So I attack those notes in a different way. And some of the notes I have brought down, but, you know, the fans wouldn't know any different. They just see me and they go, she's singing it. So that's all that matters.
See, that's what's really fascinating. The audiences never think that, you know, like I say, as a pop artist, you're running around the stage and sometimes you're shouting, can you hear me? You know, and you want some kind of feedback from them and they roar, but you kind of then have to sing the notes, and you've taken your throat you've strained your throat by just shouting. So
That's
the fact that now you're older, you're recognizing that you have to adapt. It's fascinating, you know? And is that working for you?
Absolutely. And I keep adapting. I keep listening to how my voice will sound each day when I'm doing shows. But like I say, my savior before I go on stage is the warm-ups, you know, doing the vocal.
How long is an average warm-up for you, Rozalla?
It depends how long I got, but on average, I do anywhere between 5 minutes if I'm in a hurry, which I find has been sufficient, or 10 minutes. I don't like to warm up for too long because then I don't want to fatigue my voice. So I'm also conscious of that.
Fascinating. It's great because, you know, you're taking people on a journey with your voice, you know, from that young girl with all the energy to now a more mature artist who's kind of cleverly being able to do the same work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like anything in life, as you get older, you have to adapt. You know, it is just life. It is how it is.
Hey, you know, the guy that won the 100 meters in the Olympics 20 years ago, he's not going to be doing the same time that he did then, you know, but he learns to adapt.
He learns to adapt, and he'll run in a different way for his age, for what he is. You know, it might be slower, but he'll still be doing it. That's the main thing. He'll still be doing it.
It's great because you're learning to protect yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you touched earlier on about being on the Dangerous tour with Michael Jackson. Were you a fan?
Major fan. I mean, you know, going back to Zambia when I was in junior school, you know, we loved the Jackson 5. That's what they were known as at the time.
Let me show you.
Exactly. I mean, we just love the Jackson 5. And then, of course, the Jackson 5 became the Jacksons, and then Michael Jackson branched out himself as a solo artist. And in my opinion, his album, Off the Wall, has been the best for me.
Rozalla, I do a radio show called Bangers and Chat, and I play 70s, 80s, and 90s. And when I play any Michael Jackson, I only play from Off the Wall because it was pre-Thriller. Thriller, obviously a wonderful album, and no disrespect to Quincy Jones.
Yes.
It's very overblown. Whereas Off the Wall is pure pop, soul, great beats.
Yeah.
You know, I think we agree on
it's
that.
Real. It's real music from Michael Jackson, singing it for real. And wow. You know, so I remember then when we were in Zimbabwe, this is how much of a big fan I was of Michael Jackson. I got, my dad had just bought a workshop, and I'm thinking, oh, Dad's doing well, he's rich, I can call Michael Jackson in Los Angeles. So I got the operator in Zimbabwe to call Los Angeles to get me through to Michael Jackson. And then I heard the operator, you know, with this American accent, which was so exciting to me, saying, sorry, we can't put you through to Michael Jackson, you know, and all that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got through. Then, of course, my dad got the telephone bill, and he was so angry with me, but he found it so funny. I said, Dad, I just tried to call Michael Jackson. Come on, you know. But that's how much of a big fan I was.
You know, at the beginning of the interview, Rozalla, but I'm just a nice girl, you know. You've been a little rule breaker from being this high. You knew what you wanted. Did you ever tell Michael that story?
No, I didn't, because, you know, when I met him, we took official pictures, and he was so nice, and he chose me personally to be on tour with him, which I will eternally be grateful to him for. And then I just remember saying to him, you know, my mom's a big fan. He went, oh, hi, really? Say hi to her. And he hugged me. And then he was having voice trouble. And I think there was a date at Wembley that he cancelled at the 11th hour. And I went on and did my spot. And then I came off, and then I just heard Michael's not coming on. So Michael said to me when we met, and we were taking pictures, he said, Rozalla, how do you look after your voice? Because I've been having voice trouble. And I'm thinking, this is the king of pop asking me, how do you look after your voice? So coming back to what we were speaking about earlier about resting the voice, I just said to him at the end of the day, Michael, you know, if you're losing your voice, you got to rest it. And he's like, but how? I'm on this major tour. And that's a dilemma.
So many artists, mature artists, I see when they plan their tours now, because they've got more control as they're older, you know?
Yeah.
So they have gaps, you know? You'll see people like Cliff Richard doesn't do 6 nights in a row. He'll do every other night, and there'll be gaps, because you have to learn to rest. As you say, the only one thing that aids your voice is rest. And
Absolutely.
it's really interesting when you talk about Michael, because he was the king of pop. And yet, when he's on stage in front of like 80,000 people, the temptation to shout something to the audience to get a response,
Yeah.
then this little muscle we have here, because that's what it is.
It is.
We strain it.
Yeah,
So
easily.
I think it's great that he turned to you for that advice.
I was surprised, you know, but here we are, you know, ultimately resting the voice when we can. You know, if your voice is tired, there's a way of how you can hit those notes. And as long as there's a good sound system and you can hear yourself clearly, it gives you a confidence that you can attack that note in a different kind of way. But if your voice is tired and you can't hit any notes, honestly, it's just time to just rest it.
So when you were on the Dangerous tour, I think there were about 43 mammoth dates, you know, huge audiences. Did you feel really comfortable with Jackson's crowd and his team? Because obviously they're massive, big team. Did they put their arms around you and bring you in?
It was incredible. It was absolutely one of the most surreal times in my career, you know, and going out on stage, the stadiums held anywhere between 25,000 to 75,000 people, mostly 75,000 people. The 25,000 stadiums were in Monza, which was in Italy. The rest were 75,000 people. And I remember the Paris Stadium, I can't remember the name, but the fans either burnt down the gates or pushed down the gates. They were so excited to see Michael. And they ended up being apparently over 100,000 fans in the stadium. Yeah.
And you wonder why someone strains their voice, you know, because, yeah.
The excitement, you're so excited. You want to give them back, and just, it's your way of thanking the fans for taking the time to come and watch you and basically give you all this adulation.
And all this is, if you think about your aunt, what was your aunt's name again that encouraged you?
Kuni.
You know, think about that encouragement that she gave you and where you ended up. It must have been, you know, there must have been nights when you felt like phoning home and saying, guess where I am?
Oh gosh, she was my biggest fan. And, you know, sadly she passed away, and I was told that she kept all my pictures, all my CDs, all my albums. And unknown to me, she followed me all the time. And I was like, you know, touched my heart.
And I bet she's up there like a little guardian angel keeping an eye on you now.
Yes, I certainly hope so. She was a big fan.
Talking about guardian angels, was there anybody on the Michael Jackson tour that you warmed to, that you could go to and have a little chat with?
Well, yes, absolutely. And, you know, we're friends till today, Cede Garrett. She wrote Man in the Mirror for Michael Jackson.
And she duetted with I Just Can't Stop Loving You.
That's right. And Cede
obviously sung it a bit better than that.
So we've kept in touch since then. And, you know, we talk. And the last thing she said to me was, she made me laugh. She says, girl, you're still out there doing your thing. You know, other friends of ours, not that there's anything wrong, all saying, how many packs of chips would you like? You know, how many coffees would you like? Because it's a tough industry. It really is a tough industry. And she says, so we've got to be grateful. And, you know, that's why during this interview, I've been just saying how much gratitude I have.
So was Saida on the tour as a backing artist, or was she just calling in on the tour? Was she part of the tour?
Oh, she was part of the tour, big time. She was a backing singer as well as coming up front the stage and doing the duet with Michael.
I mean, writing was it Man in the Mirror that she wrote for Michael?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
that is another song that is played all the time,
Yeah.
So she must have had a really good relationship with him to write for him.
Oh, yes, she did. They had a very good relationship.
Yeah.
They really
That's a
did.
lovely, and I love that, I Just Can't Stop Loving You. It's a classic track, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. At first, when I first heard that song, I couldn't differentiate between their voices because they sounded similar, until I got to know Saida and I listened to the song. Then I knew, yeah, that's Saida's voice and that's Michael's voice.
I've just had an idea for a Christmas single. We could knock out a cover of that, you and I.
Book the studio, Daniel. I'll be there.
See, there's that little fighter. She's still in there. She wants another hit.
Exactly. My agent said to me the other day, Kevin, he made me laugh so much. I said, oh, Kevin, I think, I'm going to retire at this age or whatever. First and foremost, he almost had a heart attack. He took out his asthma thing and started spraying his voice. He's like, no, you're not going anywhere. And then he said to me, but seriously, sister, you still got that fire burning inside you.
Well, I'll tell you, talking about fire burning inside you, you had a single out, I think it was 2021 or 2021. And the gentleman that wrote it was part of Holland Dozier Holland.
Oh, yes. I feel it way.
Dozier. So
yes.
tell me about that beautiful track.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Well, that was held in the library by one of Lamont Dozier's friends here in the UK. And because I've got a new album coming out in about 4 to 6 weeks' time, that song is part of the album that's coming out. And he sent it to Gary Simmons of Energize Records saying, this is up Rozalla Street. Listen to it. It's never been recorded.
Was it Phil Harding, the mixer
Phil Harding.
from PWL?
That's right. It was Phil Harding. That's right. And Gary sent it to me and I listened to the song. I said, oh, Gary, we've got to do it. So we did the song. And for me, the loveliest thing that came out of that was the song was sent to Lamont Dozier before he passed away. And he sent an email saying, I'm so grateful that Energize Records have chosen this song for Rozalla, who sung it so well. Thank you so much. Wow. And I believe his wife said he was not well at the time. He was under the weather. And then sadly, a few months later, he passed away.
And the song was called I Feel It Slipping Away.
Yes, I Feel It Slipping Away.
That's going to be on your new album, yeah?
That is on the album, yeah.
I mean, Lamont Dozier Holland, for anyone that doesn't know, and I'm sure most people do, they wrote so many incredible hits for the Motown era. Diana Ross, so many massive hits. To think that, you got to sing one of Lamont Dozier's songs.
Absolutely. In fact, I got to sing 2 of his songs because I recorded a Lamont Dozier song on the Sony album called You Never Loved the Same Way Twice. And actually, when I was in the studio, recording it with Rick Knowles was his name, a phone call came through and he said, Lamont Dozier's on the phone. He wants to say hi. So I've had 2 run-ins with this man over my career where once I spoke to him.
Guardian angels,
manifesting, putting out there good things. And I just thought, wow. At the time when I spoke to him, I didn't realize he was this legendary songwriter. I was still young. I was from Zimbabwe, Zambia, in the UK recording this. And when I realized who I'd just come off the phone from, oh my gosh, the ripple effect in me was just humongous.
But how wonderful. You see, I think those old school artists and old school songwriters, they love to speak to people that are recording their songs because they love the fact that someone wants to do their version of their song.
Yeah.
And I think those old school people want to embrace people that are doing their work.
Yeah. And because, Daniel, it is a tough industry. The way I see it, it's a tough industry. And, Mr. Lamont Dozier, for him to have called me and just given me a pat on the back to say, thank you for recording my song. I mean, wow.
If you had to give a piece of advice to your younger self, and I don't mean the little toughy 3-year-old or 8-year-old that was picking up the phone to Michael Jackson or singing in talent competitions. I'm talking about the younger you that first started off in the business. If you could give that person a little bit of advice, what would it be?
Oh, it would always be the same, Daniel. It would be Rozalla, believe in yourself, follow your heart, follow your dreams, and listen to constructive criticism.
You see, a lot of, I mean, you know, people that buy records and fans, you know, when you appear on TV or on stage, you look strong, you look like you're full of confidence. Quite a lot of people don't realize that behind the scenes, there's so much going on that
Yeah.
quite often you're not as confident as they
Yeah.
think you are.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, each time I go on stage or I've done Top of the Pops, the nerves that I would feel, I'd be so nervous. You know, when I was supporting Michael Jackson, oh, I'd be so nervous. And fortunately, the team on the Michael Jackson concert, we all became like a family. So you're far away from home, you're traveling every single day or every second day. But you also know this is an opportunity that's not going to be forever. So you're grabbing that. And then there was this man who gave me some crystal stones to keep in my pocket to not be nervous, which, you know, is another story. That's why I'm now into crystals. But you just like, don't be nervous. And I'm thinking, but it's an opportunity. Grab it. It's an opportunity. It's not like I'll be doing this forever, you know, and
Talking
just
about-
make hay when the
talk-
sun shines.
Talking about opportunities, you work with the legend that was Michael Jackson, and then you work with another huge star. I mean, the fabulous Billy Ocean.
Oh, yeah.
So how
Oh,
did
yeah.
that come about? Because, you know, that he's a great singer still, you know.
He's amazing. Honestly, Daniel, I feel so honored to have had supported him, and how that came about. He was
That was
and
in
still,
was it 2009, around 2009?
it was exactly around then, yes. And I toured with him and we did 53 dates, but they weren't one after the other. We started off the dates 2008, and then we had a break for about a couple of months, and then we went back 2009 and finished off the tour across the UK. And it was because I had an album that I'd recorded, what I call my dream album, an easy listening jazz album called Brand New Version. And Billy was being managed by my manager, John Anderson, who was also looking after me at the time. And Billy said, yeah, she can come on and be a support act. And so that's how that came about. So it was a different type of gig for me. We were performing in little concert venues that held anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 people. And I had, you know, Simon on piano, John on drums, and Alexis on bass, and me in the front. So I had nothing else to hide behind. Whereas when I go out and do my gigs now, I have dancers, maybe I have some backing singers, but it's just me and my USB, who's my band. Basically, you just plug it in, got a live microphone, good sound system, monitors, and I just got there and I do it. But this
when you did the stuff with Billy in 2008 and 2009, and you said it was smaller venues, you had less musicians. Did you change the material? Did you still do the big rave stuff, or did you do some more intimate stuff?
No, I just did the Brand New Version album songs. Totally different, totally different. And we added a jazzy version of Everybody's Free to Feel Good. Yeah.
That must have been interesting. I'd love to hear. Did you record that? A jazzy
Yes,
version?
it's on the Brand New Version album. It's on.
Oh, good. So what was Billy like to work with? Because he seems like a great guy. I mean, what a great voice Billy's got.
He was incredible, a wonderful, wonderful man. And each time I watched him, and like my husband said, and a lot of our friends that we invited to watch Billy, he was one of those artists. He is one of those artists. When you were watching him, you'd look and go, oh, I know that song. Oh, I know that song. Oh, I know that song. So every song he did, you'd heard it somewhere in your life.
Well, you go back. I mean, his recordings go back to the 70s. You know, like Red Light Spells Danger, and you know he's coming up, and then he ends up singing on Hollywood movies. You know, when the going gets tough. You know, his career has spanned generations. You know, he's maintained his voice. You know.
Oh, and what a voice! What a voice! And in fact, Billy actually taught me how to warm up before I went on stage. He's like, you've got to get into the habit of warming up, otherwise you will hurt your voice.
So listen, I mean, you know, you've had a career that's now spanned decades. You know, what's next for Rozalla?
Well, like I said earlier, Daniel, I've got my new album coming out anytime between 4 to 6 weeks from now. And the new single will be out about 2 weeks later after the album is released.
So the album is called?
We haven't got a name yet.
Ah, you should
It's
ask
that
the
yet.
fans. Ask the
Yeah,
fans.
I
Maybe
should
you
ask the fans.
call it Longevity.
Oh, that's a good one, Longevity. Oh, okay.
And what
Yeah,
about,
so we don't
have
have
you,
time.
have you picked the single from the album yet?
Yes, it's called A Lot of Love. It was actually done, I think it was 1976, by a lady called Nicolette Larson, who sadly is no longer with us. And my husband heard the song and is like, you got to do the song. You got to do the song for the album. And of course, yeah, that's the next single.
Rozalla, I can honestly say it's been a pleasure talking to you. You know, it really has.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Daniel. I
And I'm
really
looking forward to your brand new album, which we do not know the title yet.
No, we've got a few names. We've got
Yeah.
3 or 4. I'm still deciding on which one. I can tell you we're thinking of because there's a song we released during COVID that I co-wrote called Turn on the Light. And I'm leaning on that being the title of the album because Turn on the Light is such a positive lyric and a positive line for life. Turn on the light.
All your songs have had a kind of spiritual edge to them, whether it was in the title or the emotion. So that would fit in perfectly.
Yeah, we thinking that one will be 99%. So we'll decide very soon. But
And
I think that will be the one.
And I imagine, as per usual, there will be lots of mixes because whenever
yes,
I think of Rozalla, there's a club mix, there's this mix. You're really into your mixes, aren't you?
absolutely. So we'll have the CDs will be constructed of CD1 with the radio mixes, and then CD2, which will be the additional mixes.
Fantastic. And what about going on the road? Because we've got the Rewind tours, we've got Butlins. There are so many now things for heritage artists. Have you got
yes.
anything planned?
Well, I've got quite a few dates in the diary. I think I've got when I checked, about 52 dates this year. So I start getting busy probably from next week on. I'll be doing gigs nearly every weekend, 2 or 3 a night or things like that. And, the festivals usually start happening when the weather starts getting better. And I have quite a few gigs in the Scandinavian territories and in Spain. So, yeah.
I actually think there might be a heritage chart show coming up in July, possibly. So that might be an opportunity for you and I to meet,
I would love that.
We could possibly, start practicing the song, the Cede Garrett song.
Stop loving you.
There you go. At least you know the first line. I know the second line. We've got it.
Exactly. Let's do it.
It's been wonderful talking to you, and looking forward to the new album, the new single, and more spirit of Rozalla coming out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Rozalla. It's been great talking to you. And thank you for watching Livewire. We'll be back with you very soon with another interview. Bye-bye.